Welcome to Brave Mind Collective, the podcast where we explore the power of the mind, nurture self-love, and unlock the courage to grow stronger every day.
Here, we're all about real talk, transformative insights, and practical tools to help you face life's challenges with resilience and grace. Whether you're seeking self-discovery, mental strength, or just a little inspiration, you're in the right place.
So, take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's build a braver, stronger, and more empowered you together.
All right, so we're diving deep today into making friends as adults, which I'm sure a lot of us can relate to how tricky it can be. And we've got a really great lineup of sources to help us out. Articles from Psychology Today, Very Well Mind, and SucceedSocially.com, plus an excerpt from the APA's Monitor on Psychology Magazine. So we're going to break down the best advice from these, uncover some research, and basically give you a game plan to build those connections you want.
I think what's interesting is that we've got all these different angles on this topic, like we've got hard data, we've got practical tips, and even advice specifically for people who think of themselves as shy. So it's a pretty well-rounded perspective, I think.
For sure. And instead of just kind of hoping friendships will just appear, a lot of these articles emphasize that it's really about mindset. And they talk about this thing called the liking gap. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, the liking gap. It's fascinating. Basically, research shows that we constantly underestimate how much other people like us.
Wait, so you're saying people might actually like me more than I think they do? What does that even mean?
Well, it's kind of a big deal, actually. And it's even more pronounced for people who are self-critical. And here's the interesting part. If you go around assuming people don't like you, you're more likely to act in ways that make them actually like you less. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy almost.
So if we flip that around, could assuming people do like us actually make us behave differently?
Exactly. Assuming the best brings out the best in you, right?
Yeah.
When you approach interactions expecting a positive outcome, you tend to be warmer, more friendly. And that can actually lead to greater acceptance from others.
Okay, I'm starting to get how important our mindset is here, but some articles talk about being proactive, actually putting yourself out there. Is it really not enough to just be open to friendship and kind of hope it happens?
Well, research has shown that passively waiting for friendships to form, it can actually make you feel more lonely. One study in Psychology Today actually found that. People who thought of friendship as something that takes effort reported less loneliness over time.
So even just the intention to put in the effort can make a difference. Wow, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's not magic or anything. The thing is, adulthood doesn't have the same built-in structures for making friends that we had as kids. Like, think about it. School, sports teams, just playing in the neighborhood. We had all these constant unplanned interactions and shared experiences, which naturally created connections.
It's true. We were almost forced to interact as kids. But as adults, we're busy. We have our routines. It's easy to get isolated without realizing it.
Exactly. So we have to be more deliberate about creating those opportunities.
Which brings us to the practical stuff. How do we actually do that, create those opportunities? I mean,
a lot of the articles recommend pursuing hobbies in a group setting. It kind of recreates that repeated interaction we had as kids. Psychology Today mentions hiking groups, book clubs, volunteering, anything where you're consistently engaging with the same people over time.
So it's about finding activities where you're naturally drawn to the people who are already there.
Shared interests are a great starting point, for sure. And there's this interesting concept from SucceedSocially.com called repotting. It's a really helpful way to deepen connections.
Repotting. Tell me more.
So, think of it like transplanting a friendship into better soil. You're basically varying the settings where you interact with someone. So let's say you have a work friend and you want to get to know them better. Inviting them to hang out outside of work is repotting that relationship. You're taking it out of that purely professional context and giving it a chance to grow into something more.
I love that analogy. It's like giving the friendship room to breathe and evolve.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But even when you're putting yourself out there, going to these groups, there's still this hurdle of overcoming avoidance. We all deal with that to some extent.
Oh, tell me about it. Sometimes the anxiety of social situations is just overwhelming.
Yeah. And the Psychology Today article distinguishes between two types of avoidance, overt and covert. Overt avoidance is staying home because you're nervous. But covert avoidance is when you physically show up, but you're mentally checked out.
Like being at a book club but scrolling through your phone the whole time? Ouch. I've definitely been guilty of that.
It's a common coping mechanism, for sure. But remember what we were saying about assuming people like you. If you challenge that inner critic, even just a little, it might be easier to put the phone down and actually talk to people.
I see how that all ties together. But for someone who's shy, Walking up to a stranger and starting a conversation, it can be absolutely terrifying.
It can be intimidating, absolutely. But even the smallest steps can make a difference. The Psychology Today article suggests just introducing yourself and asking open-ended questions.
Like, give me an example.
Okay. You could say, how long have you been coming to this group? Or, what do you enjoy most about it?
Okay, those are good, not too personal,
Yeah.
but they show you're interested.
Right, and then their response can give you clues on how to keep the conversation going.
This reminds me of something I read about the mere exposure effect.
Yeah.
The idea that we tend to like people more just because they become familiar. Psychology Today mentioned a study with women attending a psychology lecture.
Oh yeah. The more classes a woman attended, the more the other students liked her. It's pretty wild. Just goes to show you consistency is key.
The study even found they liked her more, even if they didn't actually talk to her. Just seeing her there repeatedly made her more likable.
Exactly. It really highlights the importance of just showing up, even if it feels awkward at first. It's like physical fitness.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get in shape by going to the gym once. It's the repeated effort over time that makes the difference.
Okay, so we've talked about mindset, being proactive, overcoming avoidance, and being consistent. What are we missing?
Well, once you've made those initial connections, the next step is building deeper relationships. And that's where the idea of exclusivity comes in.
Ooh, exclusivity. I like the sound of that. This seems like it's getting to the heart of what makes friendships really meaningful.
Yeah. The Psychology Today article talks about having experiences with one person that you don't have with others. It's about creating a shared history, going beyond those casual group interactions.
So how do you make that shift? Go from, we both like hiking, to, let's be friends.
It can be something as simple as asking someone to meet up before or after the group activity, or suggesting grabbing coffee sometime. It's about creating a smaller circle within the larger group.
That makes sense. And it goes back to that repotting idea we talked about, right? Taking the connection and giving it a new environment.
Exactly. Nurturing that individual bond within the broader social setting. And here's where expressing genuine affection for your friends becomes really important. The Psychology Today article highlighted research that found the number one thing people look for in a friend is someone who likes and values them.
Yeah. I think we all want to feel seen and appreciated. But how do you express that in a way that feels genuine? It can be awkward.
It doesn't have to be some grand gesture. Small, authentic actions go a long way. Tell your friends you're happy to hear from them. Compliment them. Greet them warmly. Maybe even share something you genuinely like about them.
Those are great tips, and they don't require you to be some super social butterfly.
Right. And speaking of genuine connection, the Very Well Mind article was full of great conversation starters.
Oh yeah, I loved that one. They had questions about work, family, interests, hobbies. They even had specific questions for different settings, like parties or book clubs.
It's a great resource. But the key is to go beyond those surface-level questions. Show genuine interest, listen carefully, ask follow-up questions, and let the conversation flow naturally. You might be surprised by the connections you make when you allow yourself to be curious.
It makes you realize how much effort goes into building friendships as adults. It's not something that just happens. You have to put in the work, be consistent, be willing to get out of your comfort zone.
You got it. But the rewards are so worth it. Strong social connections are essential for our well-being. They make us happier, healthier, more resilient when things get tough.
So it's not just about having people to hang out with. It's about investing in relationships that make our lives better and help us feel truly connected.
Exactly. And those connections can blossom in the most unexpected places if we're just open to them.
I feel like we've covered so much already. And honestly, I'm feeling a lot more hopeful about this whole making friends thing. It feels less daunting now, more like an exciting challenge.
That's great to hear. But we're not done yet. We've got more fascinating research to unpack, including some really interesting insights on how shyness plays into all of this.
You mentioned shyness, and I'm curious to know more about that. Does shyness actually stop people from making friends?
Well, there's this study in the Journal of Psychopathology that looked at this. It focused on teens, but the findings are relevant to adult friendships too.
I can see that. Teenagers are going through so much socially, trying to figure out who they are. It can be a really awkward time, and I think a lot of adults can still relate to that.
Absolutely. What's interesting is that shyness didn't really affect the number of friendships these teens had. Shy teens had just as many reciprocal friendships, where both people consider each other friends, as their non-shy peers.
So it's not like shy people just can't have friends. That's good to know.
Right. But shyness did seem to have an impact on the quality of those friendships. Shy teens tended to see their friendships as having more negative qualities, less companionship, less help, less security, even less closeness.
Oh, wow. So even when they have friends, they don't feel the same level of support or connection.
That's what the study suggests, yeah.
Hmm.
And it makes sense when you think about it. Shyness can make it hard to open up,
Yeah.
to share your vulnerabilities, to really let someone in. And those are the things that allow friendships to deepen, to become truly meaningful.
It's like they're holding back, even if they don't mean to. But can shy people overcome those challenges and build strong, fulfilling friendships?
Well, for sure. And
Yeah.
understanding shyness can really help with that.
Yeah.
The SucceedSocially.com article had some great advice specifically for people who are shy.
Yeah. That one had some really practical tips. And they acknowledge that working on your shyness takes time, but you can still start building connections in the meantime.
Exactly. One of their suggestions was to just be honest about your shyness. Let people know that you might be a little quiet, or that it takes you a while to warm up.
I can imagine that's really hard to do. Isn't there a fear of being judged or seen as weird?
That fear is totally understandable, but in my experience, people are usually pretty understanding. Especially as they get older. Most of us have been there.
Yeah, that's true. I have several friends who are naturally shy, and it's never been a big deal. It's just part of who they are.
Right, and when you're upfront about it, it takes the pressure off. People know what to expect, and they can adjust accordingly.
It's like you're inviting them into your world,
Yes.
shyness and all. And that vulnerability could actually help you connect on a deeper level.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about being authentically you, even if you happens to be a little shy.
I remember SucceedSocially.com also had some advice about finding social situations that play to your strengths. What were some of their suggestions?
They talked about figuring out what types of conversations and settings you feel most comfortable in. So if you don't like big, noisy parties, maybe you'd prefer smaller gatherings or activities with more structured socializing, like a book club or game night.
So it's about knowing your limits and not forcing yourself into situations that might trigger your shyness.
Exactly. And it's not just about avoiding certain situations. It's also about seeking out environments where you're more likely to meet people who are like you. They gave the example of hobbies that attract more introverted people.
Yeah, like instead of trying to be the life of the party, maybe you join a chess club or a writing group. You're more likely to connect with people who share your interests and your energy level.
Right. It's about finding your tribe,
Yeah.
those people who get you, shyness and all.
This all seems to connect back to the importance of consistency, which we talked about earlier. It's not about having one amazing interaction and that's it. It's about showing up regularly, building those connections over time.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. That's true whether you're outgoing or shy.
It's like anything you want to get good at. Fitness, learning a language, mastering a skill. It takes time, dedication, and a willingness to embrace the awkward moments along the way.
Exactly. And that awkwardness can feel even stronger when you're trying to make new friends, because you're putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, risking rejection.
That's why that research on the liking gap is so encouraging. It reminds us that we're often a lot more likable than we think we are.
It's a powerful perspective shift. It can really change how we approach social situations.
So much of this comes down to mindset. We can just tweak our perspective a little. It can open up so many possibilities for connection.
It's incredibly empowering, especially for people who have struggled with shyness or social anxiety. We've covered a lot of ground here, from the first steps of putting yourself out there to understanding how shyness works. But what about keeping those friendships once we've made them? Do the articles give any advice on that?
That's a great question. Because making friends is one thing, but keeping them is a whole other challenge. What did you find?
Well, the Monitor on Psychology article talked about this. It emphasized that. Just like building friendships, maintaining them takes consistent effort too. It's not a one-time thing.
So it's like tending a garden. You can't just plant the seeds and forget about it. You have to water them, weed them, give them what they need to thrive.
I love that analogy. And just like a garden, friendships can bring us so much beauty and joy if we're willing to put in the work.
So how do we tend to our friendships? What are some practical things we can do to nurture those connections?
One of the biggest traps is expecting our friends to read our minds, to just know what we need without us having to say it directly.
Ah, yes. The unspoken expectations. That's a recipe for resentment and misunderstandings for sure.
Exactly. Open and honest communication is so important for navigating the bumps in the road. That means setting boundaries, addressing conflicts head on, and being willing to forgive.
It's about remembering that friendship is a two-way street. Both people need to feel heard and respected.
Absolutely. And sometimes Even when we try our best, friendships change or fade away. That can be hard to accept, but acknowledging it can make us appreciate the friendships we do have even more.
That's a really good point. It's about cherishing those connections, nurturing them, and realizing that they're a precious gift, not something to take for granted.
Well said. It's about appreciating the people who make us feel seen, supported, and loved. But we've only scratched the surface here. There's still so much more to learn from these articles, including tips for deepening connections and navigating the ups and downs of friendship.
Yeah, there's definitely more to uncover. And, thinking about friendships like gardens that need tending, it makes me wonder about the specific things we can do to nurture them, to help those connections thrive. What else did you find in the articles?
Well, one thing that really stood out to me was how a lot of the articles emphasize the importance of small gestures. It's easy to get caught up thinking we need to plan big things, but sometimes the most meaningful actions are the simplest ones.
That's a good reminder. We do tend to overthink things, especially when it comes to relationships. So what are some of those small gestures?
Psychology Today had a great list, like sending a quick text to let someone know you're thinking of them, giving a genuine compliment, or just remembering important dates like birthdays or anniversaries.
Yeah, those are all easy to do. It's about showing you care.
Right. It's about making them feel seen. Another simple but powerful thing is being present during conversations. Put your phone away, make eye contact, and really listen to what your friend is saying.
That's so important, especially these days when everyone's so distracted. Giving someone your full attention is huge. It shows you respect them.
For sure. And active listening goes beyond just hearing the words. It's about asking questions to make sure you understand, reflecting on what they've shared, and responding in a way that shows you are really paying attention.
So it's not just waiting for your turn to speak. You're really engaged in the conversation.
Exactly. You're creating a space where they feel heard and understood. And on the other side of that, don't be afraid to share your own experiences and vulnerabilities.
That's hard for some people, though. It takes trust.
Yeah,
And letting your guard down.
it does. Which is why it's important to choose friends who you feel safe with, people who will support you, and respect your boundaries.
That's true. You can't have those deep connections with everyone. It's about finding the people you really click with, the ones who you can be yourself around.
Absolutely. And those connections often grow stronger over time.
Yeah.
As you share more experiences and learn more about each other, the Monitor on Psychology article talked about creating rituals and traditions together.
Rituals? Like what?
It could be as simple as having a regular movie night, trying a new restaurant every week, or even just calling each other on a certain day to catch up.
I love that. It creates a sense of history.
Yeah, and it gives you something to look forward to.
It strengthens the bond.
It does. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy or expensive. It's more about the intention, making time for each other, and making the connection a priority.
Now, what about when things get tough? We talked about this earlier. But how do you navigate those challenges in a way that actually makes the friendships stronger?
Well, like we said, communication is key. But it's not just about what you say, it's how you say it. You have to approach those conversations with empathy and respect.
So even when you disagree, you have to do it in a way that isn't hurtful.
Exactly. Remember, you're on the same team. You're both trying to understand each other and find a solution that works for both of you.
It's about keeping the friendship in mind.
Right. But sometimes, even when you try your best, friendships do end. It's a part of life. People change. And that's okay. It's important to let yourself grieve the loss and then move forward, taking those lessons with you into new relationships.
Wow, that's such a healthy way to look at it. We've covered so much in this deep dive. From the psychology behind friendship to practical tips for making and keeping those connections. What's the most important thing you want our listeners to take away from this?
I think it's that friendships take effort. Just like any important relationship, they don't just happen, but they're so worth it. Good friends enrich our lives in so many ways. They give us support, joy, laughter, a sense of belonging. So be open to connecting with people. Be brave enough to put yourself out there. And don't underestimate the power of small gestures.
That's beautifully said. I think it comes down to being the kind of friend you'd want to have. Be authentic, be supportive, be present, and be willing to put in the effort. Because those genuine connections are out there.
I agree.
This deep dive has been so eye-opening. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of how